So, why did y'all come to this talk? What? Dr. Chastain said to come. He came because he loves his wife. Now look, the women don't think you guys talk. But the last session proved, it almost turned into a therapy session. I had to stop it a couple of times. They started talking about their relationship. I was like, oh no, we can't have a therapy session here. Anyway, so we are going to talk today about you handling you and you handling relationships. So the smart guy is not the guy with the high IQ. Doesn't hurt to have a high IQ. It's not the one with the most money. Not the one, contrary to belief, with the most toys. Not the highest grade point average. So what is the smart guy? Whoop, not that guy. That's supposed to be you running out of the room after I start to talk about it. So the smart guy is heart smart and talk smart. The heart smart is going to refer to how you manage what's going on inside of you. And I use the word heart, but it really has to do with everything, from the top of your head to the tip of your toes. And then talk smart is how do you handle your relationships with other people. So we're going to spend the first half on the heart, the second half on the talk. And that's you. You're supposed to scream and run out of the room like your wife is bringing up, tell me how you feel, right? Or I had a physician I worked with. I won't say his name. It's confidential. It wasn't Curtis. And he would laugh and he would say, the four most dreaded words: we need to talk. And so I did this experiment about 5 years ago. I ran an ad in Business Report. I was like, let's see what these men do. And I got a little bitty ad. And at the top I put the four most dreaded words: we need to talk. And I didn't get any men calling me after that ad. Now all the men that were in therapy were like, we saw the ad, we know what you're doing. So. All right. Let's talk about the smart man is healthier. The man that is heart smart and talk smart is healthier. So they've done a lot of research on this, and they're healthier emotionally. And what I mean by heart and talk looking at this is men who are able to manage what's going on inside better, and men who are able to be in relationships successfully. Now, if you're not married or in a partnership, some of what I'm saying about marriage or relationships, just think of family and friends. Emotionally, they have less depression, less anxiety. They report more satisfaction in life. Physically, men and women both live 4 years longer, 33% better immune system, less illness. There's some research on heart disease that says you're less likely to have a heart attack, and your recovery is better if you're in an ongoing good or good enough relationship. And mentally, I'll just mention one study there done in Sweden. They followed 27,000 men and women, looked at marriage, divorce, widowed, in their 50s, and then sampled them, I think it was 15 or 20 years later, and looked at dementia and Alzheimer. And if you were alone in those mid-years, you were 3 times as likely to have certain types of dementia. And they kind of lined them out. So there's some of your data. What I want you to do is get in mind maybe your first car you had. With this age group, the older guys, it's exactly kind of car I want you to have in mind, which is one with a manual transmission. And I want you to think of those gears. So my first car was a 1967 Mustang. Why don't I still have that car? And learn to drive with that car. So I want you to imagine you have these gears, because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. and we'll be talking about 7 gears. Emotion gears. And here was the car I picked, of course, a little sports car. Heartsmarts is about being able, 2 of these gears are designed to go 0 to 60, and actually there's a 3rd gear that goes that fast too. We won't go into that one in depth. But there are 2 gears that go 0 to 60. Fight and flight. Good gears, you need these gears, okay? If somebody comes in this door with a gun, I want y'all to go in those gears, especially the fight one. I want you to protect yourself and us. But there's a point in time where those gears don't really help you anymore, and that's part of what Heartsmarts is about, is becoming conscious and tuning in to what state am I in. And we're not just talking about heart in the sense of emotions. We're also talking about the thoughts that go with it, okay? The urges that go with it, the body sensation. So all the way from your head to your toes. Here's the flight gear. We had sound effects, but I don't know. All right. So the purpose of the flight gear is to escape, right? You want to get away from things. Your body is into running away. If you had an emotion you could pinpoint, it would be fright. As soon as you slowed down enough, you'd start worrying and catastrophizing. And then let's get the flip side, which is, all right, the purpose, again, is to protect. You might feel from anger to rage. The thoughts tend to go to blaming, scorning, past memories of wrongdoings, and the body is ready to strike. Okay? So I want to practice this one a little bit. And I promise we won't get too touchy-feely. We're not going to ask you to share with your neighbor. We just want you to, for a moment, you can close your eyes or not, I want you to go back to a more recent time where you had this fight or flight response. It could have been driving your car over here. It could have been in the parking lot. It might have been last night. So for a moment, I want you, if you would, to close your eyes, get that picture in your mind. Turn it up a notch. And I want you to notice anything in your body, like if your heart rate might go up. Notice any tension. Get a fix on your thoughts, if you're having some thoughts. And of course, what you might be having the urge to do. All right, so open your eyes and just a couple of examples. Anybody have something that come to mind?
Mine happens when I go stand in line at the post office.
There you go.
You know when you walk in the door, it's going to be a bad experience.
Right. And you start at that moment to go back and forth inside. That's part of the wear and tear. And then I just want to leave and get away from it. How about traffic?
Yeah.
Driving? Did any of you think of an interaction with somebody close to you or a family member? Yeah. And then what did you notice about your body, about your thoughts, about urges? Just share a couple. Stress and back pain, you said? Okay. Okay, body got real, real tense thinking about somebody in the family that he's trying to help. Okay. You're not a rational person. You lose rationalization. Now look, these gears are really good and bad. So we don't really judge the gears in a sense. We say it depends. So this is a Heartsmart practice, goofy little smiling face. You know, he looks like he's doing a meditation. And I call it a practice the same way you would practice playing golf. You would practice some computer program. You would actually practice, and we're going to do a little practice sitting here. And the practice in part is noticing more consciously what kind of state am I in. It's also going to involve practicing some of these gears that come up that really have more meaning and purpose for us, practicing them when they're not happening, and then particularly practicing when you're tense and stressed. Now, a lot of times we don't even notice the tension and stress until we have the physical symptoms of it. Has anybody ever done biofeedback in here? Biofeedback is a fancy way to do what we're doing. Take a machine, they hook you up, and the machine gives you feedback on tension level, body temperature, so that if you were doing some of the images we were doing today, particularly the ones where we're going to help you shift and get real relaxed, the machine would tell you, you're relaxing, you're relaxing. But until you slow down, it's hard for us to tell when we're doing it. All right.
That's good to took away the tension.
You did? Well, actually, I want you to get a picture in your mind. Maybe not these, but when you do the little images as we're talking, I do want you to get a little image in your mind because that's something you can use. Now, these gears, I didn't make these up. It's not that they can go in your brain and find every part of this, but this bit is based on some neuroscience research. Some of it is a little more theory. And it has to do with, okay, you're a little baby, and you're born with the programs for these gears. And they're going to unfold. They unfold. And then the family you're in rewards some of them, punishes some of them, role models some of them. So these gears are inside of you and they unfold, and you don't think about them. You have a psychologist of her talking, but you don't think about it. This seeking gear is the gear that gets you to do projects, to have hobbies, to learn. So I want you for a moment to close your eyes again. And I'd like you to think of a project at home or at work, perhaps a hobby, something you became passionate about. I want you to remember a time, maybe right now, where if you have an hour or 2 hours or 4 hours, you want to learn about it, you want to do it. You'd be on the internet, you'd be down at the store looking at stuff. And so get that fixed in your mind. And I want you to notice your body for a moment. See if you have an emotion, too. Might be a little excitement. And notice if you have some thoughts about it. And maybe some images or urges in that direction. Okay, now open your eyes. And could we have just a couple of examples? What did you come up with this seeking gear? Okay. So in his image, in a project, part of his seeking gear involved motivating other people. Okay? What else?
Well, they told me I weighed 222, and that's considered obese. And I'm like, so I'm thinking about, I've got to start working out again, taking action.
That would fit in a seeking gear, even though it's kind of motivated like, oh, you got to be kidding. It's getting a focus that's meaningful. And the thoughts that go with it, and there can be some excitement with it. There might even end up being a little fear, but generally, on the positive side, it would be an excitement. Again, we do this already. You don't need a psychologist to tell you, why don't you go in that gear? You're already doing that gear. What we're talking about is becoming more conscious. This is a gear, one of our favorites, a care gear. All right, so real quick, close your eyes. Think of someone, not necessarily a partner, Could be a family member, a friend, a child. It could be your partner. You get their face. And a caring gear, you want to protect them and nurture them. The feelings have a soft glow to them. Call them love, happiness, tenderness. And you have thoughts and images, urges. Probably your blood pressure slowing down a little bit. Okay. All right, open your eyes. Who did you see? What did you notice about your body, your mind, your emotions? Uh-oh, he's gone into another gear. We're going to talk about that gear a little later. He said, I was seeing my partner, I was getting kind of like goosebumps. That could be the care gear, too. That's right. One other person, let's see how many people actually saw someone or some scene. Raise your hand. Okay. Now look, you're seeing scenes all day long. You just as well choose some scenes that give your body some rest and peace. Right? Okay, let's do one more gear and then we're going to do an exercise. How about that gear? Especially with the chicks on the beach. Huh? Get rid of the guys. I should have took the guys off the beach and just had the chicks. So the play gear is the one designed to get you, most of these gears, as you can see, the ones we're going over now, are designed to get you to go toward people, to be connected, because that's what helps us to survive. So the play gear, I'm going to have you imagine for just a few moments. I want you to close your eyes, and I want you to picture yourself in some kind of play activity. So go ahead and close your eyes. And if you can, have it be a play activity that doesn't involve a big goal. So let's not be on the golf course trying to hit the perfect round. Let's be on the beach, or maybe you could be walking on the golf course. You could be sitting around with a group of friends, laughing. I want you to notice what happens to your body, your emotions, and your thoughts. Probably notice everything kind of slowing down. Okay, now open your eyes. How about this one? Did you like this one?
I don't have to play here.
You know what? You are probably not alone. A play gear is a very difficult one, particularly for people who have worked and run very busy lives. It's one of the ones that's most difficult for me because one of the gears I get in a lot is seeking. I love to learn and knowledge. So did anyone else have trouble seeing themselves play? Yeah, you got several. You got good company. And then those of you that played, where did you go to play? Grandkid? Okay.
Bill Cunny in Colorado.
Ah, he went to Colorado. Now, the idea here is not that you're going to avoid stress, because stress is not bad until it is. Stress is not bad until it is. Stress is good. It gets you up, it gets you motivated, it helps protect you, and then it's not good anymore. This is more about shifting gears. So this is what we're going to do to kind of wrap up this part. I'm going to have you, I'm just going to walk you through remembering what you got bent out of shape about, or maybe something new will come up. And then I'm going to help you shift to one of these gears. You do this already. Otherwise, you would be in prison because you would have gotten stuck and done something you shouldn't have done. So this is what I want you to do. I'm going to ask you to close your eyes again, and I want you to picture the upsetting incident, or pick a new one. And just let yourself sit in it. Get yourself cranked up a little bit. And just long enough to notice your thoughts, body tensing up maybe. Perhaps label the emotion, irritation or anger. And notice any thoughts, critical thoughts, angry thoughts. I'm going to ask you to take a deep breath, real deep, and hold it, and now let it out. And this next breath, when you take a deep breath and you let it out, I'm going to ask you to just let that picture fade. So take another deep breath. And when you let it out, just imagine it fading, just like a balloon going off into the air. And now let yourself breathe nice and regular. And as you breathe out, just let it drift away. And you can do this on your own. You can practice this. When you find yourself tense, to just focus on it for a moment and then take a deep breath, another deep breath. That's right. And then let it out and let the image drift away. And now I want you to engage in one of the other gears. It might be the play gear, the caring gear, or maybe the seeking gear. And let that image come to your mind. Some people see images, some people see words, or they just get a feeling. And now take another deep breath and breathe that image and word in. That's right. And now take another deep breath, holding that image. And then just notice your breathing. And notice for a minute your body. Is it more relaxed? Perhaps your emotions. Do you feel a little more peaceful or happy? Any thoughts? Good. Okay, so open your eyes. Did you get the angry image back and the experience? Did that come back? Yes. Okay. And when you started to take the breath, and I suggested you let it kind of fade away, did anybody have that experience where they could use kind of an image? Yes. And then, were you successful bringing the other gear in play? Okay. Good. Now, it's kind of like going to an Al-Anon meeting where we say, it works if you work it. It's not that those self-help books don't have great things in them. It's that people read them and they don't do them. Some of these techniques, you have to practice them. Now, if you don't like the way I'm doing it, I could tell you, go down and visit the yoga woman. Because actually, when you do yoga, you can get some of this. It helps you to shift gears. You could go to a pond with a cane fishing pole, the old-fashioned way, and plop it in the water and watch it bob up and down. And then you think about something bad that happened, and then you think about, oh, blah, 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 blah. Maybe get a fish, okay? You already have ways that you shift. We prefer that they be healthier ways, okay? So let's do real quick. There's two other gears, and then we're going to move into the relationships. Panic gear doesn't sound good, but what that means is you have someone that you feel connected to and close, and you can't see that person, or maybe, you know, they just leave. Maybe they die. You know, panic gear is designed to get you to move closer to people, not necessarily to take care of them, but to soothe yourself. And of course, this one was originally named something else. I used the romance word. But I'll say the other word now. I'm working on this. It was called the lust gear. Lust, L-U-S-T. And you notice I didn't have y'all image that one. I really didn't want to. When Curtis first said that, he was like, yeah, you could give a talk on, you know, sex. I was like, no. And then I think you mentioned the word intimacy, and I was like, no, because if men hear the word intimacy, they'll be thinking sex. So I'm not doing that. So the romance gear is designed really to have children and, you know, for fun and excitement. And it's an okay gear to use, but I'm not going to give you permission to shift from these stressful gears to sex all the time, because how many times a day do men think of sex?
All the time.
Well, 30 in the research, but you could imagine some college student And they're telling them, okay, click this every time you think of sex. So who knows how many times you really think of sex. And women, 2 or 3. And it's not the same images, I can guarantee you. No, it's supposed to be a day. All right. So this is your Heartsmarts. Checking your gears daily, often. Checking in. And you know how you could do it? When you leave here to get in the car, when you get in the car, before you start it, or right after you start it, check. How's my body feel? What emotions am I in? What am I thinking? Then just grab the steering wheel and get present. When you turn the car off, do it. When you first walk in at work. This is about becoming conscious of what's going on inside of you. Now, we don't expect you to do this all day long. That's too high a maintenance. It's exhausting. It's not any fun. It's not living. By the way, this is not living. This is just a practice to help you live. Living is going out there and doing things. Practicing ahead of time, and then there's your fear and anger. You check, is it useful? How's this working for me? Dr. Phil's greatest statement. How's this working for me? When you're done, when it's not working anymore, self-soothe, do some breaths, let go of it, and shift. And then you always ask yourself, is this working? All right, so now we're going to move. We have about 20 minutes, and we'll go faster, but you'll get it. Talk smarts. Again, the research says people who are affiliated with each other in different ways, who have a stronger social network, do better physically, mentally, and socially, particularly as they age. Now, I've kind of geared it a little bit more for women, and then there were 2 of you. Look how happy. We don't look at their faces. We just see them holding hands. Here's the facts. Which sex brings up 80% of the issues? What percent of issues are unsolvable? She likes chocolate. He says all of them. She likes chocolate. He likes vanilla. You're not solving that one. Now, you might be able to compromise. And by the way, this research comes out of Godmans Lab. If you want to look at the book, I didn't bring a book. I didn't write references down because, guys, y'all don't read books. Not those kind of books. So I threatened that I'm going to get, Louisiana fishermen, and I'm going to put an article in the middle. So if anybody knows some of those fishermen and hunting article publishers, right in the middle it's going to be how to hunt and fish more. And then it's going to have to do with getting along with your partner so that you don't have as much grief. Gottman set up the Love Lab. And the Love Lab was not the Lust Lab. It was the Love Lab. And he had hundreds of couples come in, and they weren't patients. They weren't couples who were divorcing. They were couples he advertised for. And they came in, and he did things like measure muscle tension, heart rate, immune system through the blood system. He even had in the chair a little measure which was the wiggle factor, so that when a couple started getting into it deep, like arguing, he could see how much they were wiggling, how agitated they were. He found out all kinds of things. So that's what we're looking at. Which sex avoids conflict? Men. And there's some evolutionary, biological reasons for that. Okay, that's one of the theories. So one of the reasons is that men know pretty early, growing up, that if they get jacked up, they're going to act out. And so they have learned not to get jacked up, because men are designed more to take action, and if they get upset, they're going to take aggressive action. Not really, but that's what they're programmed for. So that's one reason. Another one is, if you're going to run off and hunt in the old days, you can't be sitting around talking about feelings. You got to run off. You got to get jacked up, but then it works. The third reason that you would avoid conflict, particularly, is that you have a sense of what it's doing to your body. So whether you know it or not, you have a sense that it's wearing you out. So it's, in a way, it's good you avoid conflict, but once you get the heart smarts, you can deal with it a little better. Which sex gets the most upset quickest and takes longer to calm down? It's the male. That's the way you're programmed. Which sex gets more upset if the partner doesn't listen and allow influence? So here's your don'ts. Gee, a psychologist has to tell you this. Don't criticize. You can complain, and there's a big difference. And women don't get it sometimes either. Complaining is something you don't like or something you want different. Criticizing is when you go into, I know what's right, even if you don't say it, your attitude says it. I'm right, you're wrong, you always, when you go after their character, whether you mean to or not. Okay? So don't criticize, show contempt. This is the #1 predictor of divorce. And contempt is when you get into that range of hating, but there's a nonverbal component. It's a heavy judgment, but the nonverbal component, when they videotape, and these poor graduate students are watching these videotapes, is the eyebrow goes up, the upper lip goes into a sneer, okay? And it can be, I made it exaggerated, but you hardly know it, okay? Don't be defensive, which means somebody says something and you start telling them why you did it or why you didn't do it, and you start interrupting them. And stonewalling, which sex in 85% of the marriages does the stonewalling? Stonewalling means you quit talking about it. And it goes back to what we were talking about, because when you go to talk about it, whether you can get a grip on it or not, everything's starting to rise. So, or else, women get harsh. If mama ain't happy, nobody happy. And you flood. That's the word he used for it. So what's a man to do? Pretend? Yeah, we've done that. Give up, give in. How about avoid? Drink, TV, work. Change your partner's behavior. Oh, that one works well. Change to a new partner. And actually, you know, sometimes I tell people, if you want a good relationship, just get a new partner every 7 years. It's about every 6 to 7 years is where it really starts to demise. Or you change yourself, which, you know, all the women standing behind you, this room is filled with them, I'm sure. They've been nagging you, and they go, yeah, that's the one you need to do. So I'm going to talk about things that you can do to make those connections with other people work better. Now, I'm not supposed to tell you this. Gottman found this out, and I'm simplifying it a little bit. It's not perfect with the research. He said, you know what? You can even misbehave if you have enough in the bank. So he's saying, Pat's going to tell you all these communication do's and don'ts, and you really should learn them because it'll make your life easier, not only with a partner, but with other people. But if you have enough positive stuff in the bank, you can get away with stuff. Did they need to do research to tell us this? No, they didn't. But here's ways to put deposits. Cha-ching, cha-ching. Tell and ask about the day. And like one client told me, he said, oh, I get it. This guy had a very dry sense of humor. Oh, I get it. Talk and listen about the same things every day. Yeah, sometimes it's the same things every day, because who comes up with these earth-shattering things over and over again? And that's, by the way, part of the reason you get a partner is, you know, courtship is wonderful. It's exciting. It's mysterious. But you got to be on. And it's high maintenance. And so then you get a partner because it's, you know, you're domesticated and there isn't a lot of mystery and you don't have to worry. And then it can be boring. Okay? So tell and ask. Talk about positives. An example of that would be, you know, didn't we have a nice time last night? Some project around the house. I really appreciate you doing that. Pointing out things that are positive. Doing things together that have special meaning. Doesn't have to be big. It could be you drink a cup of coffee together. It could be you walk around the block. It could be she goes with you to Cabela's. It could be you go with her to the mall. Okay? It would have something a little more special, though. Asking her to do things and taking her up on invitations. And again, we're not talking about huge invitations. It could be, I have to go to Walmart. You want to go with me? And you're thinking, no. but you get up and go. And she's told you before, I don't really like to do that. And you say, why don't you come with me? Because what he found in his research is the couples that were doing better were doing all these things. So he took hundreds of people. He took the couples that were headed to divorce 5 years later, or divorced, and he took the ones that were doing well. And he said, well, how are they different? And these are some of the things he found. All right, here's the talk part. Yes?
Something that really helped in my marriage recently is that I asked my wife, I would like to do it every day. I just at least twice a week, I asked her in the morning, what can I do today to show you that I love you?
That's sweet.
And I'm a Sunday school teacher. We try to start a new class. I'm the only one that shows up. She happens to be a life coach.
She taught you some good stuff.
Yeah, very good.
Now, one of the things you can do with talking, this is kind of hard because the average two people talking talk. They don't really listen. And a lot of times with couples, I will have them, I'll actually tell them to get I hate to do it, but like a kitchen timer the first few times around. And one talks for 5 minutes, and the other one may listen and respond, but they cannot respond and then take it in a different direction, which is what we do normally in conversations, and that's okay. One person talks, then we comment on what we think. This is a little different. If you're going to bring up an issue with another person, particularly a partner, could be your daughter, could be a parent, you start up easy, have an attitude adjustment, and stand up for yourself without putting them down. So I'll walk you through it. To not have contempt, you have to use your heart smarts and get yourself in a pretty decent spot. Now, you're going to get angry if it's something, very important, or if it's something that's got other stuff going on underneath. But as much as you can, you would try to do an easy startup. And you could even do that if you were angry. You could say, I'm not very happy about this. And try to describe what it is you want different. Even if it's a pattern, don't say, you've done this forever. You did it again. It's more sticking with the complaint. The attitude adjustment is to notice these thoughts about, I'm right, she's wrong, okay? I'm better. This is the way to do it. You're not going to get rid of those thoughts. How long have you had those thoughts? How long have you been married? You've had those thoughts from the beginning of the relationship. You had those thoughts when you were a kid. I'm right, they're wrong. You're not getting rid of thoughts. You're noticing them and showing up anyway. Standing up without putting down is to get an idea of what it is you want. You may not get it because compromise is probably what's going to happen. But saying what you want without telling them what they should do, should think, okay? Now, could I have this same talk for women? Actually, this is really the talk for women because of some of the patterns they fall into, but you guys do too. Here's the listening. No defensiveness means not interrupting, not telling someone why you did something or didn't do something. Finding the understandable part means when someone talks and there's a space there to respond, that you actually take something of what they've said and you say, I get that. You said this and it makes sense to me. Or, I do understand that. I don't see it the same way as you, but I get it. If you looked at one of the major complaints women have is that men tend to solve things. They don't stop. They don't create enough space to acknowledge, and that's where 2 and 3 particularly show up. That word validate does not mean you agree with someone. Validate means that you communicate to them in different ways who you are, what you have to say, what you feel. You have a right to those. It's important. It doesn't mean you agree with it. These things are not about agreeing. They're about respecting and letting somebody else show up. Repair. Now, let me go back to the emotional deposits. His research said if I take 5 of you guys and you got to apologize to your partner, we could have 5 different ways you apologize. You could look sweet. You could have an attitude. The best predictor is what's in the bank. Repairs don't work if you don't have positive stuff in the bank. Okay? This one, I'm only going to, this is a little harder to put into action. What he found is, you know those problems that you talk about over and over again? Those problems, besides, sometimes they have to do with differences in what you like or don't like, but those problems often have to do with a deeper sense of what the person wanted for their life. So you might be arguing about leaving dishes in the sink. You might be arguing about the way you greet each other in the morning. She may be complaining you leave your underwear on the floor in the bathroom. You may be complaining that she doesn't answer your call right away. And what we find is that the biggest tangling and the most conflict come up because underneath it, people have definite ideas about what hits the spot. And a lot of times in counseling, we end up going back to the family you grew up in, the relationships you had over your life, because what happens is you, excuse me, you made decisions along the way. I don't want a relationship like my parents. Or I do want someone to adore me the way my father or mother adored me. And a lot of times the only way to get to this is that you have to slow everything down. Those Heartsmarts are really important because if you can't slow it down to ask her, you know, we've been arguing about this for years. What does it really mean to you? And she might say, it means nothing. It's the dishes. You leave them there. And you say, well, all right. A lot of times it has, to, again, to do with respect. Do you really care about me? Now, what I've done, we only have about 5 minutes, and I am just, we've done this, but I have a cheat card for you. Don't show your wife these cheat cards. And, you know, we're thinking if you get in a little accident or something, they go through your wallet and they find this cheat card, it could be bad for your reputation. Huh? Yeah, you can. So if you look at your cheat card, and you'll recognize it. I know I've given you a lot of information, but the best way to think about it is it has to do with you managing yourself and you interacting with the other person. So the first one is checking your gears regularly, practicing the ones that warm you up daily. If you're experiencing fight or flight, checking in, self-soothing, and shifting. Heart deposits daily. Deliver and receive easy and stand up for yourself. Repair by assuring worth and value, that validation word, and knowing and respecting dreams. And then the last one is to check in, is this really working? And if you cared enough to come to this talk, you had some kind of question, something you wanted to work better. And I'm not going to tell you you need to go to therapy for that, although the advantage of maybe not therapy but type of education is when you read a book, because self-help books don't work. When you read a book, you don't have that connection and encouragement from another person. You can go to a church and get some of this kind of support. You can get in therapy. That's probably the two places where you guys are encouraged the most, really. So, thank y'all very much. You're welcome. I think y'all need to do your evaluation forms, and I'm going to stick around for a while and answer any questions.